Hi everyone and welcome to the channel. In today's video I'm going to answer the question that I probably get asked the most about ball pythons, obviously from people that don't know them, and that is, do they bite? So obviously ball pythons have two methods of defense in the wild, which they don't use as much in captivity. The first method is rolling into a ball, hence the name ball python, and the second method is to strike defensively, which is kind of a bite, but it's not really a strong bite. It's more like a peck. So the first thing to note is that they don't like to bite in captivity, and I mean generally most of them become extremely tame, and as a general rule I would say no, ball pythons don't bite, simply because they're not a particularly defensive species. They're pretty chilled out. This one here is a bongo pastel female, and how active she is, this is about as lively as she gets. She gets extremely excited for food, but you know, there's no way you could get this snake mad enough to strike at someone. It just wouldn't happen. So first of all, what I wanted to cover was really the fact that obviously, like I've said, they don't bite, they don't like to bite, but there's always exceptions to the rule. So first of all, I would say that some hatchlings do bite, but only for a limited amount of time. You'll get a few in every clutch which will strike. They'll lash out and they'll kind of like give you a little nip, and they'll do it here and there, and it's especially when you hatch them yourself and they haven't been handled before, they're really fresh new babies, that they'll do this. So is it possible to get bitten by ball pythons if you're keeping one that's already kind of well grown and grown on before you get it? It's not likely. If you breed them, you will get bitten. You will get bitten by babies probably every year. And that's just how it is with baby animals. A lot of baby reptiles, their confidence kind of grows with them in proportion to their size and weight, if that makes sense. The smaller they are, often the more defensive they are. And with ball pythons, this is no exception. They are very chilled out by the time they get to this snake size. So yeah, if you have babies, you will get bitten, but otherwise it's really not, generally something to worry about. And she's in a lively mood today. Anyway, before I go any further, I just wanted to say as well that there are two types of bite. There's a defensive bite and a feeding bite, of course. Now, ball pythons have recurved, pointed teeth, needle-like. They're not really shark-like, like a lot of people say, because they don't have a serrated edge like a lot of sharks do. Although I suppose some sharks do have needle teeth, but I'm kind of getting off topic. Anyway, they've got rows of tiny pointy little sharp teeth. They've got 4 rows up top and 2 rows along the mandible or lower jaw. And these are really good at gripping in and really hooking into stuff. It's kind of like having a bunch of fish hooks go in your finger. But they only really employ these teeth well, with any intent, when they are feeding, when they're trying to grab a prey item. So when they bite you for defense, in the very unusual occasion that this happens, or if it's a real new but tiny baby, they give you a little peck. It's a little jab like that, and they give you a nip, and you get some little drops of blood. And it's really not a big deal. You'd be surprised at how little it hurts and how little it actually does. Now, on the other hand, when they're trying to feed, when they really want to eat something, like if Bongo here is getting ready for the breeding season, she's really hungry and she wants to grab a rat, they will grab it and they will hold on really hard, and they'll grip and they'll pull backwards to try and hook those teeth in and try and grab it and pull it in. And that is when you'll really feel the teeth going into your finger. And that's a lot more, I was going to say a lot more painful, but I mean none of them are really that painful. But it is more painful, and it will bleed more than a defensive bite. So it's always something to think about, how to avoid being bitten. And as I said, because the adults are so docile, and any baby over kind of, a month, or even one that's been handled a few times, is so docile, really the main thing to think about to avoid being bitten is to use tongs when feeding. Tongs, or whatever the other things are called that you hold, look kind of like a pair of scissors, but they're blunt. Can't remember, forceps or something. Anyway, I use tongs for feeding. I use, for a snake this guy's size, I'd probably use 12-inch tongs, at least, maybe 18-inch. to hold the prey at a distance, and that way, if you've warmed it up nicely, the snake is going to grab the prey and not your hand. Now obviously I'll put up some clips during this video because I have been caught out probably twice this year and a few times in the past where snakes grabbed my finger. A little baby grabbed my finger the other day and it did bleed, but honestly there was barely even a mark the day afterwards. It's really not anything major. So I think my main message is, you will get bitten eventually if you keep a lot of them and breed them. But really it's nothing to worry about. You should be much more worried about bites from animals like dogs and cats and stuff like that. So, on to the next question that I get a lot, kind of related to biting and why you might get bitten, is do ball pythons recognise their owners? And the general consensus is that yes, they recognise your smell and they do recognise you. Whether they have any affection for us, I mean, no one really knows because their brain is so far down a developmental scale in terms of, compared to other vertebrates that, we don't know if there's much going on there really at all. But they do recognise this. They recognise your scent. They know that you're not a prey item or a predator. And generally, if they're normal and there's nothing wrong with them, they won't bite. The problem is, like with feeding, they use all of their senses to get their food. They use smell. Smell is a really big one for them. They use their thermoreceptive pits or their labial pits, which you can see on the face here. They use eyesight to catch movement, and when you are getting ready to feed them, they get so excited with all these senses going off at the same time. They're kind of like a guided missile, and as soon as they see anything that they think might be a rat, anything warm coming towards them when there's a smell of rat in the room, sometimes they just go for it. So it would be totally possible for me to, put my hand in this one's enclosure while I had rats defrosting in the room or warming up and get bitten. And in that case, it's not the snake's fault, it's your own. And it will hurt more than a defensive bite. But, they do recognise us, but like I'm saying, they get a bit confused. So caution is just always the best way. Now, that put aside, the next topic, which a lot of people kind of try and promote. I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but it's kind of dumb. A lot of people say they need regular handling to stay tame so that they don't bite, they don't get defensive, etc. Now, in all honesty, this snake here doesn't really like handling. It tolerates it, but she's been really good today. Generally, she doesn't like handling. She doesn't really enjoy it. She tries to get away. She tries to wriggle free and just get back to her enclosure. So this is a snake that I'm not going to handle regularly for the sake of it. If the animal doesn't enjoy it and is showing no signs of enjoying it, or in this case showing signs of not enjoying it, I'm not going to do it just for the sake of, because someone says I should. But what you notice is that she doesn't bite. She never has, she never will. It's not in her nature, and I don't need to handle the snake regularly. Now, I do have a theory on why so many people say that they need regular handling. One clue is that it's not breeders saying this, it's not regular pet keepers saying this, it is bloggers and YouTubers saying this, some of which are very successful, and I think it's part of an overall game that they play, where they try to make these snakes out to be more intelligent and more emotionally active than they really are. Because the more you can anthropomorphize an animal, the more you can say, hey, it needs a pretty enclosure and pretty furniture, etc., etc., pretty objects and decorations in there. And if you do successfully anthropomorphize animals like reptiles, you can sell more products for them. And that will skyrocket the profitability of your blog or your YouTube channel. So I don't believe that there's a whole lot going on upstairs. The vacant stair might be a clue there. And I don't believe that they need regular handling to stay tame. I believe that most of them are very docile simply because that's their genetic makeup and that's how it's determined. So, with that said, obviously that's my opinion. People are free to disagree with it, obviously. But with that said, what I wanted to cover very, very briefly, just at the end here, is obviously we want to determine how bad a bite is if you're concerned about it. Honestly, the bite is not that bad. Personally, I just don't like the sensation of being bitten on the ends of the fingers. I find that a really uncomfortable sensation. I don't like it. But the bite, if you do get bitten, is always quick. It's always like a 1 second thing. It bleeds a bit. It's not bad. If your cat bites you hard or your dog bites you hard, it'd be much worse than a ball python biting you. It's really not something I would worry about particularly. But anyway, if you have concerns about this or you want tips handling your snake, please do get in touch and comment. But my quick tip, my quick bit of advice is get those forceps for feeding and just approach them gently. If you've got a new snake, you're not sure about it, you're feeling cautious about handling it, get it out during the day when it's going to be sleepier. Put gloves on if you want to. Whatever you have to do to get yourself comfortable with handling that snake. And even if it's a new one, even if it's a baby that's a bit nippy, handle it a few times and it will be completely fine. So, I hope I haven't left anything out. If I have, please get in touch, comment, subscribe, ask questions, get involved. And if you do disagree with anything, let everyone know. Let me know. It makes it more interesting. Thank you very much.